You know, it's weird to think that just 5 years ago, people really didn't give a shit about Doom. I mean, in the nostalgic sense, they did, but back then, the future wasn't looking so bright.
At that point, the last time we saw Doom was through a blockbuster hit starring Dwayne La Roca Johnson, in which there were no hell or demons, and video game-wise, we got Doom 3, which honestly was pretty good, but it didn't really grasp just what made Doom special. Then E3 2015 rolled around and showed us the Doom reboot, which had immense promise, but the last game id Software made was Rage, so there was cause for concern. Sure enough, the game released a year later, and it wound up on the prestigious FerrisWheelPro's Top 10 Games of the Decade list at number 3. Joking aside, Doom 2016 was a smash hit, in spite of the multiplayer betas being poorly received and the game having no pre-launch review copies. Even though it had a pretty successful launch, I didn't hear as many people talk about it as much as they did Uncharted 4 and Overwatch. Fortunately, the same could not be said for its sequel, Doom Eternal. While the announcement came at E3 2018, the real hype came at QuakeCon, where they showed off 30 minutes of badass gameplay. And from there, the hype ensued. It was immeasurable, and everyone wanted a piece of that Doom Slayer pie.
And who wouldn't? Because if you thought Doom 2016 was wild, id Software was promising twice the amount of wildness with Doom Eternal. Literally, there are double the amount of demons in this game than there were in the last game. At least I think that's correct. It might be more, actually. 1 second. And there are 2.987964 times the amount of demons than there were in the last game. Why do they always round down?
The story in Doom Eternal goes something like this. The Doom Slayer is angry. But to be fair, I would also be angry if I looked like this. Still, demons have invaded Earth, and it's up for him to do what he does best. Kill them all. Where do demons even go when they die? Okay, the plot is a little more complicated than that, but much like the last game, the story doesn't hog the spotlight if you don't want it to. Most of the lore behind the locations and characters are told in the menus for anyone who wishes to know more. If you don't, then that's okay. Just rip and tear to your heart's content. The most interesting part of the single-player campaign is where the story takes you. And just when you think you've seen all the locations there are to see, it throws even more at you. Seriously, the levels keep getting crazier and crazier, and god damn it, I love it. The only flaw here is that it has an ending, and when it does end, you wonder, where do they go from here?
Now, if you're expecting the gameplay of Doom Eternal to be more like Doom 2016's, you'll both be satisfied and disappointed. Though it does take a lot of the same elements from the last game, it tweaks a few things here and there to make it feel more fast and more difficult.
The key differences in Eternal you'll notice right away are that your weapons store less ammo, there's a dash button, and you're going to be using the chainsaw. A lot. In the first game, using the chainsaw would cause demons to excrete ammunition from their cold dead bodies. I didn't use it that much back then, but now in Eternal, it is essential. And now it helps that the fuel for the chainsaw regenerates automatically, though you'll still want to collect fuel tanks in order to slice and dice the bigger demons. Even then, ammo is still limited, and the lack thereof really forces you to think on your feet during battle. I had a few favorite weapons I used all the time in the last game, and in Eternal, I used pretty much all of them. Partly because I would run out of ammo on each and every one, but also because certain weapons work better against certain demons. Before I elaborate on that further, let me just say that this game is noticeably harder than Doom 2016. Even though I played that game on the Nightmare difficulty, I had to start Eternal on Hurt Me Plenty, because that mode definitely hurt me plenty. This time around, enemies are stronger, they attack faster, and they come in bigger numbers. In order to balance this out, some demons have weaknesses you can exploit to make them less of a threat. The Arachnotrons, for example, have turrets on their tails that deal a ton of damage, and a well-placed sticky grenade or sniper shot will take care of that. Also, those cacodemons have big mouths, big enough to throw a grenade in. All of these elements make for some insanely hectic combat that makes Doom 2016 look more like Doom 3 by comparison. I honestly don't even know how I'm going to be able to come back to Doom 2016 because Eternal just improves upon everything that made that game great, especially when you get to these places called Slayer Gates that make Doom Eternal look like Doom 2016 by comparison. These gates warp you to a small map where hordes upon hordes of enemies try to rip you a new one. And let me tell you, I would have failed more of these gates if I didn't have any 1-ups in my inventory. Yeah, there are 1-ups now, because Doom Eternal is a video game and doesn't apologize for it. I love it. I love it. However, one thing that surprised me was that I've heard some people on the internet actually complain about this new gameplay style, saying that the low ammunition is annoying and that using the chainsaw all the time just ruins the flow of combat. Now, I like to think I respect differing opinions more often than I don't, but I have one thing to say to these people. But you know what does ruin the flow of combat? The platforming and the swimming. Fortunately, they don't take up too much of the game, but I'd be totally fine if I went another day never seeing a flying coffin again. Flying coffins? Really? Who thought of this idea? Like I said though, they barely take up 5% of the game, so I consider them more minor annoyances than serious flaws. Speaking of minor annoyances, I've also heard complaints about these enemies called Marauders, which, like some other demons, start out as bosses before becoming regular and easier enemies to take on later. They run around you with an axe, shield, and shotgun, and the only way to attack them is to shoot them when their eyes turn green. I honestly didn't mind them too much, but I understand why other people found them to be frustrating. I personally found the Archviles to be more irritating with their f***ing shields and buffing the demons. What a bunch of assholes.
Aside from its minor gripes and annoyances, I love Doom Eternal. And if you know me well enough, that shouldn't come as a surprise to you. When I made my top 10 most anticipated games of 2019 video, this was number 1 on the list. And that's when I stopped making anticipated game videos because more often than not, these games get delayed. I don't want to jinx it.
I think Doom Eternal is the perfect evolution of the Doom gameplay style, even if some people might not agree with me. It's fast-paced, fun, and makes you feel like a true god of destruction. Sorry, Kratos. So if you're not too busy chopping down trees in Animal Crossing, I highly recommend you pick up Doom Eternal. Speaking of, I know some of you are waiting for the Switch port, but if you own any of the other consoles or PC, I urge you to play this game now. You just have to experience it at 60 frames per second or higher if you have a beast PC. Even then, you don't need to have a beast PC to run this game good. It's insanely well optimized. Seriously, give it a shot.
If Doom Eternal just had the single player mode, that would have been more than enough for me. But there is a multiplayer mode because Doom is known for its multiplayer. Now, it may not have any modes like Deathmatch or anything, at least not yet, but with Battle Mode, it pits 2 players against 1 player, with 2 players being the demons and 1 player being the Doomslayer. Let's see how that works out. So Doom Eternal's pretty great.
Thank you all so much for watching this video here on FerrisWheelPro. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like this video and subscribe to be notified when I upload another video. Special thanks goes to my Patreon supporters Justice 2 Free, Stephanie Ferris, and Smash JT. Until next time, this has been FerrisWheelPro, and I will see you all on the next ride.